Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, we're at the Georgia Museum of Agriculture today in Tifton, Georgia, and we got a little project involving the steam locomotive back behind me. This is a 1917 Vulcan Iron Works 040 steam locomotive that we run out here at the museum. It's narrow gauge, 3-foot gauge. Built originally back in 1917. It's a little over 100 years old. Still in operation, and it needs a lot of maintenance work to keep her up and going, as do most old steam locomotives. And each year during the month of August, the museum kind of shuts down its historic village, and it gives the museum the opportunity time to go in and do some planned maintenance on items such as the steam locomotive here. And that's exactly the project that we have today. We have a planned maintenance item that needs to be done on here, and it involves some steam pipes that are up inside the front of the smoke box on the locomotive here. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. I'm going to bring you in here and show you what we got to work on. So you are getting a look here inside the smoke box on the front end of this locomotive, and kind of explain what's going on. So if you look back here in the back, you see the tubes. That's the boiler. That's the end, basically the end of the boiler. That's where all the smoke and gas comes out. The pressurized part of the boiler is behind that plate you see behind us. This area here is all unpressurized, and this is basically where the smoke comes out of the boiler and then goes up the smokestack. So it comes out and then goes up through this tube here, shoots up the smokestack. The pressurized steam from the boiler actually comes in these two pipes. So it comes out of the boiler, it splits into two pipes, goes down to the bottom here, and then these goes to the individual steam engines on the sides that power the drivers on the train to make it go. What we have here in the middle, this is an exhaust nozzle. So the exhaust steam coming from the engines, the spit steam comes out and it shoots up the smokestack, creates a draft inside the engine, and that's what helps make the fire burn hotter, and so on. The issue that we have is with this particular steam pipe over here on this side. And we actually had this steam pipe out last year, and we were doing some maintenance, and when we were putting it back in, lo and behold, the ear down here on the bottom snapped off. It had actually been broken previously and been repaired, but when we tightened it down, it broke again. I unfortunately was out of town when this happened. They were needing to get it put back together, so they took this steam pipe into a local machine shop, or maybe, I'm not sure if it was a machine shop, but a local shop in town to try to get them to weld the ear back on, and in the process, they really kind of made a mess of this thing. They did some things that they shouldn't have done, and it has caused us problems ever since. We put it back in, we got it back up and running, but you see the white stuff in here? This is where we have an exhaust leak. So there's steam escaping from this. It's not sealed up down on the bottom, and this is causing a steam leak, and that's what we're going to try to work on. So the game plan for the day is we're going to remove this steam pipe out. We're going to have to take some stuff off to do that. And now that we have some time, we're going to go back in here and try to do a proper repair on this and kind of fix some of the things that they got messed up last year, and hopefully be able to prevent the steam leak like we've got over here now and get this thing back up and going. So let's get in here and start tearing into it. So first order of business, we're going to actually remove this whole casting off the front of the locomotive. Basically just going to give us more access to things. It's not going to be quite a small an area to work in. So we'll probably remove the door and then remove these bolts around through here, bring the forklift in here, and we'll take this casting off. All right guys, quick update here. You can kind of see we've removed the petticoat, so you can kind of see back behind this thing now, and you can see how that steam pipe comes out. That's one pipe coming out. It goes into a T that then goes to the two steam pipes that come down. But we got the 4 bolts here to take out now, and hopefully we can pull this thing on out and hopefully it's going to come out without too much trouble. Last time we put this in, we replaced all this hardware with stainless steel bolts because it's such a pain to get in and out. So hopefully they haven't corroded up, and we were in here last year, so maybe it won't be too bad. Anyway, continuing on. Let's see if I can just get it going. Is it turning?
Yeah, no, the other end is not turning. It's still not turning.
Good.
I bet them old timers we said had stainless steel.
Yeah. All right, I think we
give me the old timers now.
I know. You're right.
What is?
I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get these off.
Okay. Spray them with room?
No, they're coming easy.
Yeah.
All right. Is there another washer on there? I can't tell. All right. That one is out. Yeah.
That thing in shift, I think it'll be alright with them other bolts on the bottom. Okay.
All right.
Shift and pinch it, nothing.
All right, it is flopping over in there. You got a little short extension for this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the side now.
Extension?
I think we got it. Might even be able to take them out by hand. No. All right, wiggle it. All right, I got it. Okay.
He just happened to be in Florida working on railroad something down here. He came by here for about 30 minutes.
See ya. Like that.
What was that? A donut?
That was a donut, yeah. Right there. Whoa, don't move, don't move, don't move. All right. All right, I think we're ready to bring it out. But before we do, let's, looks like we're there. Hang on a minute, let me.
I got it.
Yeah. All right. There just ain't enough room in there for two people, is there? I'm going to.
What you gonna do with that?
Let's go over here to the. Well, that's probably be a good idea. You got it? Yeah, let's. Let me give you an update of where we are on the steam pipe project. We've got it out now. Once we got it out of the locomotive, we took it and steam cleaned it really well using some degreaser, trying to get all the black soot and grease and everything just off of it, cleaned up so that we can work with it. In fact, while we had the steam cleaner going, we went ahead and just steam cleaned the whole locomotive. It was in bad need of it, and we're going to be doing some other maintenance and inspection work and really wanted to get things cleaned up, particularly on the undercarriage of the locomotive. So we got all that done this afternoon, or excuse me, this morning as well. Now, as far as the steam pipe goes, I've got it now. I brought it home to my shop and got a couple of things that I'm wanting to assess and come up with a game plan on. And I think what I'm going to do is, first off, we're going to do a repair to this. So let me get you in here, show you exactly what's going on, and kind of tell you what I'm thinking about as far as a repair job. First off, let me kind of orient you as to how I've got this thing sitting on the table, because it's not sitting on the table the same way it was sitting in the locomotive. This end down here was the end that was on the bottom. the locomotive, the bottom pieces. This was the top piece up here. I've got it sitting on the table this way because I've been making some measurements, and this just seems to be a good way to position it to get the measurements off of. But the biggest problem we have with this thing is all on this end, this bottom end of the casting. And as you saw, we were getting a pretty bad steam leak around the bottom here. And so the story on this is that, well, number one, this part has been broken previously. In fact, both of the ears on this casting have been snapped off at some time in the past. Nobody at our museum recalls having done this repair, so that I don't know exactly when it could have happened. It could have happened after it had came to the museum, but before the guys, including myself, who were working on it ever started. Could go back, 100 years. I just really don't know. But it was repaired. It looks like it was brazed together on this side, and there's some brazing material in here on part of it on this side right here. Last year we pulled this part out, and when we went to reinstall it, we were trying to get it clamped down to get a good seal, and this ear over here broke again. And when it happened, unfortunately, I was out of town. I was not able to come in and work on it, and they needed to get the locomotive back up. So they took it to a shop in town, talked to one of the guys that worked there, and he said, yeah, no problem, we can weld cast iron. So let me show you what they did. So the first thing they did was they actually cut a piece, I believe this is steel, out right here, and this is actually laid on top of the original thickness. And I kind of like that idea. You're putting some new material in there to give it some added support and some material that you can weld to. But then they went and they actually welded this where I probably would have brazed it. Again, I've talked about welding and brazing, particularly on cast iron, many times. Welding is when you actually take and kind of melt it all together. Brazing is when you use a dissimilar material. You heat it up and kind of flow it in there. This to me looks like they tried to weld it. This does not look like braze. And when David went to tighten this thing back up, he heard plink and the weld broke. As expected, it stayed on where it welded to the steel, but to the cast iron it just broke right off, and there's a crack running right across the top here. Therefore, he was never able to really tighten this thing down well enough to get a good seal. So obviously I'm going to have to come in here now. We're going to have to take out this piece that they put in before and completely start over for all intent purposes, and probably get down here into the root of this and try to fix that weld as well. If they had just done that, I think we could have lived with it, but unfortunately the damage that they did, they really messed this part up. And let me show you what else they did here. So the really bad part of this was on the bottom side. Now again, this whole ear had broken off, so they had welded all the way across the bottom. And like any good welder does, you got this bad, ugly weld, particularly when you're trying to weld cast iron. So he came in here and he ground it off. And once he got it ground off, evidently he just kept on grinding, wanted to get a nice flat surface there to make it look good. Only problem is that number one, it wasn't flat. And this has to be a machined surface because there's a plate that goes up on here with the little gasket, little ring that fits around this. Has to be a perfect flat seal all the way around. But not only that, it has to be in the right plane. And when he ground this, I'm probably exaggerating, but this should be how it was. And he ground this thing off where this end is in and the top is kind of laid back. And that really, really, really screwed up the geometry on this part. And that's another big reason why we were not able to get it to seal, because when he did all this grinding on here and messed up this seat on the bottom, it really messed things up. It's really difficult to tell because it's been ground off, but what's supposed to be on here is there's a ring that goes all the way around here that actually sticks out about 1/4 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch, something like that. And you kind of have a little step right in here that goes down to that area that seats. And you got a little clearance in here for these bolt holes to tighten up. Well, there is no clearance. It's just flat all the way across. And like I said, he just ground out a big part of what we needed to be there. So now the question is what are we going to do about it? Just another quick shot here, a little bit different angle. you can see the square. That should be actually flat down through here in this direction, and really kind of difficult to see it, but if you take a square here as well, you can see how the top, this is touching at the bottom, and actually this is probably where it should be. So you can see there was a lot of material gouged out all the way across this. It kind of touches right there, but as you go across, there's a big gap. So big mess. So now as far as what we're going to do, first thing, like I said, I'm going to come in here, we're going to grind this plate off the top. And once I get in there, we're going to take a look at the ear that's on here and see if I can even salvage anything on there. Quite honestly, what I'm kind of thinking about doing is just lopping the whole ear completely off. Maybe take it over to the milling machine to get a nice flat surface in here. It's going to take some probably some fixtures to hold this thing right, but I'd really like to get a nice machine surface down through here. And I'm going to take a whole nother block and put on here. It's going to probably be even thicker than what's here and probably thicker in this direction. The idea being to have plenty of material there. And we're going to braze it back on, but before I braze it back on, I'm actually going to do a mechanical joining as well. And I think what we're going to do is we're just going to drill and countersink some holes, tap some holes in the casting back here, and actually take some cap screws through some countersunk holes and bolt it to the part in two places, and then we'll come back around it, we'll V everything out and braze it on top of that. On the bottom part down here, my plan is that we're probably just going to have to come in here and braze some material on here and try to get a good surface, build this whole thing up, and again, get it over in the milling machine and get this, this face milled off flat and square back into the geometry that it needs to be. And I've still got a lot of figuring to do on exactly how I'm going to do this. Biggest challenge in this job is going to be work holding, getting this thing set up properly, and because it is such an awkward shape, getting it where we can hold it properly. So there you go. You see the problem that we have, and talked a little bit about my plan of attack. And I will say that my plan is somewhat fluid right now. I'm still kind of figuring out exactly how I'm going to do this. And work holding again, this is a really awkward piece. And I'm thinking that what I'm going to have to do is build some type of fixture that I can actually, where I can mount this thing down to the milling machine and have some clamps that come in from different angles, probably some screws that kind of come in, build a frame around it where I can drop this down in there and tighten it in place in a couple places to get it where it will hold rigidly while we're doing some milling. I've kind of got an idea in my mind how I've got to do it, but I need to get it out on pen and paper and come up with a blueprint and probably fabricate something. Challenge is that the clock is ticking on this. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the museum's pretty much shut down during the month of August, so I've got a month to get this job done and to get it back on the locomotive. That's the goal, and with my limited amount of time in the shop, it's going to be a challenge. It's probably going to be my main focus this month. Is going to be working on this project here, and you guys will get to see a lot of it. That's the immediate plan, and there is a part two to this. And that's the long-term plan. The short-term plan is let's get this thing repaired and back on there. Long-term plan, it sounds crazy. We're going to try to make a whole new steam pipe. And this is going to be a casting project. It's going to be a foundry project, a pattern making project. And we've actually already kind of started the ball rolling on this. And this is going to be a collaborative project as well. And actually I was approached several months ago, back in the winter, from a professor who's at the University of Wisconsin. I believe he's in the engineering department, and forgive me, I don't have his name right here in front of me, but he was looking for a student project. He actually teaches a class where they do a foundry project, where they actually design a project, make patterns, go to the foundry, and actually cast that part. And it's a long-term project. It actually stretches out, I think, over a couple of semesters. But as part of a class project in here, and I think we're going to work on this. So I've already been, like I said, working back and forth with him a little bit. He's already had some of his students kind of make a first attempt at drawing this. Unfortunately, at the time, I did not have all the information to give to him to draw it properly, but they actually did some rough drawings of this back in the spring. And I will say that I do have some original blueprints from Vulcan Iron Works that shows steam pipes in their locomotives. The problem I have is that this blueprint that I have isn't for the exact right steam pipe. It's close. It's actually from the same model locomotive, just a larger version. And my hope was that the geometry on this drawing would be the same as on this piece, and that we could just scale it back. Now that I've got it out, I'm not so sure that the geometry, that it's exactly the same. It's very close. It's very close, and I think that we can use this drawing, change some measurements around. The geometry is going to change a little bit, but we've got something to work off of, which is a starting point. I've also, fortunately, the builder's drawings for Vulcan Iron Works still exist. They're in a museum up in Pennsylvania. I think it's the Railway Museum of Pennsylvania. I'll put the exact name down below because, again, I don't have that right here in front of me. And we've talked with them about seeing if they can dig up the blueprints for our locomotive. They probably have them. The problem that they have is that their collection is not very well indexed currently. They've got a bunch of drawings, but they really don't know where drawings for a specific locomotive are. They have some cross-referencing, but it's very incomplete, and they've been a long-term project trying to get it organized, but it's having been involved with some projects like that through our museum, I know it's a huge challenge, and they cannot just go put their hands on this. I'm trying to feed them some more information to maybe kind of give them some clues as to where they might look, but it's not easy. So I don't know if we're going to be able to actually find the correct drawings. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that somebody up there is going to go in there and be able to dig them out. We've actually been able to find the pattern numbers. They're on the casting, so and those pattern numbers are on the drawings. But again, they don't have their drawings cross-referenced where they can just go look at a pattern number. Oh, that's on drawing such and such. They just got a big stack of drawings, I think, and I think it's a nightmare trying to deal with it. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we might dig up some original blueprints. But in the meantime, I'm making some measurements. That's part of the reason why I have it set up like here. Making some measurements, getting some dimensions, and we're going to be drawing this thing up in SolidWorks, some 3D modeling, and once that's done, I think we can pretty easily get a pattern made from that. So again, two kind of separate projects, but be running in line with one another. I really need to get all the drawing done while I have the part out so that we can kind of cross-reference and go back and forth. But anyway, that's kind of where we are right now. In an ideal world, maybe we can get this thing drawn, get some 3D prints made of the actual part, go test fit it in the locomotive, see if it's going to fit while we have everything out. That would be ideal. I just don't know if we're going to have enough time this month to get all that done. Well, guys, I know that was a lot of talking. We had a little bit of action in the first part of the video pulling this thing out. But right now, I'm focusing on just getting a game plan. But I did want to kind of get you up to speed of this project. I think this is going to be a really cool project. It's going to have a lot of challenges to it, to say the least. And I'm going to be looking forward to working through these challenges and getting this part fixed and back up and going here, hopefully, while on time and where we can have our locomotive back up and running very soon. So thought you might enjoy seeing that. And with that, that's going to be a wrap on this video. And as always, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, leave us a thumbs up. Comments are always welcome. If you got any really great ideas, probably shoot me an email. It's easier for me to see the emails than it is the comments sometimes. But anyway, I got a tall order ahead of me, but hopefully we're going to be able to get this thing done. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.